Welcome to the Swallow Safe podcast. My name is Carol Galleri Winchester. I am a speech language pathologist, and I am so pleased to be here with Dr. Gina Winchester, spoiler alert, who happens to be my daughter. Good afternoon, Gina.
Hi, Carol. Yes, my name is Gina Winchester. I'm a cognitive neuroscientist, and I have been working with Carol, spoiler alert, my mom, for many years now, and we are excited to talk to you more about swallowing safely, dysphagia, and different types of dysphagia instrumentation to connect you with professionals.
That sounds great, Gina. So let's get going.
Yes, I'm going to ask you a few questions.
Okay.
And we're going to get going.
This podcast is brought to you by SwallowSafe.com, where we strive to provide the patient, speech pathologist, caregiver, and medical professional with what they need to make a difference in the patient's life. SwallowSafe.com is your one-stop shop for accessing the support and information you need to address dysphagia issues. Our educational components, Swallow Safe Education and FeesTraining.com, provide online and hands-on training for the speech pathologists so they can lead this charge in changing functional outcomes.
My first question to you is, what made you start the seasonal feasts?
Well, that's interesting because about 20 years ago, I was perusing names of websites and domain names, and I saw swallowsafe.com was available. So I purchased the name. I just kept it active for about 20 years. And as we were developing our protocol for patients who lived at home or in an AL or an independent living who had caregivers, we were asked many, many times, we know what you said, we know what we're being told, but we don't know what that means. And so I thought, well, let's explain it. What I realized very quickly was that to say you need a texture of a regular, a mechanical soft, or a puree, or any of the many international diet standards does not translate into the regular public. So I found that if there was a way I could take some of our family recipes and make it easy for people to understand, that it might have a benefit.
So on the website, you also take that information and break it up by diet consistency. So what made you think about doing that and putting it on the website?
Well, when my brother had a stroke, and they were in central Illinois, and after he got out of the rehab hospital and they went home care was very slight and speech therapy was pretty non-existent. And I would get calls daily. Okay, Jim wants this. What do I do? All right, well, he wants this to drink. What do I do? And so I started writing things down for them. And then as my folks were seeing patients and I was seeing patients and people would ask me similar questions, I'd be like, okay, well, maybe this would be valuable. But then I took it a step further because I thought, again, because of my brother, wanting to include him in a family celebration, in a holiday meal or a Valentine's meal or a summer cookout or whatever, that there was no need for them to be excluded from the dinner table just because they have dysphagia. Or how do you go out to dinner, or things like that. So I thought, what are we going to do about that? And I thought, well, let's take a recipe that everybody can eat, but then let's break it up into regular, mechanical, soft, and puree consistency. And I didn't want them to have to throw everything in a blender because that can be disgusting. So it took a lot to figure out which of our recipes would work for this. But that's really the concept behind it, was let's be inclusive rather than, keep them from the table and go make them eat, on the couch or sit there and watch everybody else eat.
And did it help make it click for them? Because I know a lot of people, when we talk to clinicians or we talk to patients, you can say it 1,000 times.
But without seeing it, it doesn't
Exactly.
make sense. I had said to patients forever, what is it that you want? You know, are you going to a birthday party? Okay. Well, if you're going to have birthday cake, put a scoop of ice cream, if you're allowed ice cream, on top of that. Let it melt a little bit, smash it with a fork, and you have a soft mechanical soft. And they'd be like, oh, really? Or when you go out to dinner at a restaurant, order the baked fish. Nobody has to notice that you're going to cut it up in small pieces. But for each time that you smash the fork on the food, it's like 10 chews. So you save your energy for swallowing. And they'd be like, wow, that's a lot easier than I thought it was. So that was the concept, because they don't remember that. And so we wanted to make it available. So I not only had to write all the different seasons and get all these recipes from our family cookbook so that we're only using things that we developed, but also change them out throughout the year. So once we started alerting on swallowsafe.com, our speech therapist in the facilities we serve, or the patients we serve, that these things were up there, it's like the light bulb went off. And it's not usually the patient cooking the meal.
No.
It's usually the caregiver.
The caregiver.
And the caregiver is the one who's not in the therapy session.
Right.
Although they probably should be, but they're not. And so therefore the message is not getting to them.
And how did he feel when he started getting that nutrition and just that experience back?
When my brother realized, Jim, when he realized that he could eat anything, it just took a little bit of forethought. Or that Mary Kay, his wife, realized that they could have a holiday dinner and she could make X, Y, and Z and everybody could enjoy it. It made all the difference in the world. And so many of our patients say the same thing. Wow. Or I had a gentleman once who was a CEO at this huge international corporation. They lived in Sarasota. He had Parkinson's, and so he had to retire as he got a little bit worse. All he wanted to do was go play poker with the guys.
Yeah.
But he couldn't, because he would choke on the peanuts, or when he took a sip of beer. So we had to figure out, what could you have for snacks? What can you tolerate so that you're not embarrassed? And he could go play poker. And that really changed his life, because he was such an important businessman that it embarrassed him. He didn't want to cough and choke in front of people. So for so many reasons, I took the time to not only develop the website, swallowsafe.com, but to develop this. Now I'm being asked, can you put this in book form so we can get them all at the same time? And that is in the works. And then we're going to do some for Parkinson's, or some for post-cancer, or like with specific issues that folks have.
And some of the stuff that we've been putting on YouTube and social media, where we're just giving clips, have actually gotten a lot of traction. There's a lot of likes and shares. I think it's for the same reason. When they see the blender, even though we're not giving all of the recipe, just giving some of the visuals, I think is helping people lock it in. Oh, that's what you mean.
And they can go to swallowsafe.com and get the recipe.
Exactly.
That's the good thing. And what I think is so great is that, this is a bad dysphagia joke, but I always say, if you break everything up into chewable chunks,
yeah,
you're not going to choke on any of it. And it's going to make it easier. Yeah. And that's the same with this. We just try to make it easy.
Yeah, I think it's so great. And I know I like the recipes.
Well, it's all food you grew up on.
I know. So it is tasty and yummy. We're not kidding about that, because if we don't want to eat it, we're not going to put it out there.
No, and it's food that you can make easily. Like, there's some cookbooks out there for dysphagia or for, whatever, but it's things that the normal person wouldn't have in their home, or it's not things that you're going to cook with all the time. So I try to make it so that there's not a lot of reason not to do it, and you don't have to be a gourmet cook to do this. You just follow the simple recipe, and that's what I do. I make it, we taste it, we modify it,
which I like.
Yeah, and we try to just make it so that any level of cook can do it.
And I think it's really great that we're focusing on things you actually want to do. Holiday dinners, but also appetizers.
Yeah.
The big game, your social interactions, because that's what's key to quality of life.
Well, it is, and in every feast we put a main course, we put side dishes, we put a dessert, and we put drinks. And so we are going to expand with just appetizer feasts, or things like that, or just a section on a number of desserts or whatever. But we try to make it so that it's a complete feast.
Yeah, that you'd actually want to do it.
Right. And again, it's easy.
And it doesn't feel like therapy. I think that's one thing that I have noticed from some of your feedback, is that people feel like they're living their lives.
Well,
not that they're in therapy or doing a therapeutic diet.
Not to get preachy. However, what I've learned over my, 48 years of being a speech therapist, if you do not operationalize what the patient needs to do into the life they want to lead, it's not going to work. Because the average number of medical professionals these people have seen before they find us is 9. And that includes doctors and therapists and, nurse practitioners. And a lot of them have graduated from speech therapy, but they have no idea what to do. So you have to figure out what is their life, what is their issue, what is the life they want to lead, and then how can you help them rehabilitate to that. I mean, I've had patients here in Florida who they want to play golf. All right. And what can you do when you're on the golf course? What can I do for lunch with the guys afterwards? So it's not just about, of course, you're going to talk about staying safe for 24 hours, but you have to operationalize to individual situations. The husband and wife that want to go out to dinner with friends, what does he or she need to order? What do they do? And they don't want to
drink alcohol.
Exactly. And they don't want to be a problem in the restaurant, and they don't want to draw attention to themselves. So looking at the menus, helping them, what are your favorite restaurants? What do you do? That's all part of operationalizing.
Well, I really appreciate you taking this time. So what we're going to do is we're going to take a break, and then after the break, we're going to talk a little bit more about those consistencies and why it's so important.
Hi, this is Carol Galleri Winchester. I would like to invite you to go to swallowsafe.com, scroll down and find seasonal holiday feasts, where we provide you with tasty, easy to make, dysphagia-friendly recipes that will help you include your loved one in the whole holiday eating experience. Enjoy!
Welcome back to the Swallow Safe podcast. So I want to talk a little bit more about how specifically the seasonal feasts work, why those components are put together, and how do they get access to this?
Okay, so I'll give you an example. This would be the easiest way. Whenever we have a seasonal feast, as I mentioned before, we have a main course. All right. So, for example, on the fall feast, we have chicken and dumpling stew. All right. So what we do is first we describe what it is. So on this one, for example, I say something like, this stew is not only comforting as the weather begins to cool down, but it's good for the soul. And we know it's good for the soul.
Oh, it's so good.
That's one of our old Italian recipes.
Yeah.
The smell of the chicken soup alone is a boost to the system. The tried and true old family recipe with the addition of farina dumplings steeped in a chicken vegetable broth is sure to become a favorite in your household. Then we'd say how long it takes, what the cook time is, etc. We give the ingredients on making the soup base, right? And the exact directions and the dumplings. But what I thought was really cool, and this took me a while to figure out how to do that. Joe, who does our websites and developed all of Swallow
And
Safe.
spoiler alert, he's my brother and her son.
We have to keep everything in the family.
Business.
That's right.
We are very family focused.
So what we figured out was that on the Swallow Safe recipe, regular is green, meaning you're good to go. Mechanical soft is yellow. It's like, gotta watch out for stuff. And soft puree is red. That's your higher risk. So for example, on the regular, we say prepare as written. No adjustments need to be made to the recipe if the vegetables are tender and the chicken is fully cooked. But then on the Mechanical Soft, we'll say, when preparing this recipe, okay, same ingredients, same thing everybody else is going to have, but it's important to cut the veggies and the chicken into small pieces, no more than 1 inch in length or diameter. It's also vital to assure that all the ingredients are cooked until soft and tender. No crispy vegetables for Mechanical Soft. Remove excess broth from the serving bowl because you don't want mixed consistencies of thin as well as Mechanical Soft. And then you want to make sure that you chew or recommend that they make sure to chew the vegetables before they swallow. You can always fork mash a little bit if you need a soft Mechanical Soft, but as an extra precaution, you can use a potato masher or an immersion blender to take just a few swipes. You don't want to puree it at the vegetables so they break up into smaller pieces. Depending where on that Mechanical Soft or International Dysphagia Diet metric that you are. So it's not the intention to blend the vegetables. That's your Mechanical Soft. But then if you're going to do a puree, same ingredients, same cooking, same everything. The meal can be blended with an immersion blender in the following way, because you don't just blend it. You want to cook the chicken and the veggies together because you want to get that chicken flavor, right? Cook the dumplings with the softest consistency so it falls apart in the broth. Then remove the chicken and blend the veggies and the dumplings and the broth to a thick consistency. Top it with grated cheese and serve as a pudding thick or a honey thick liquid. So you don't have a mixed consistency soup. It's got all of that chicken flavor. It's wonderful and it's easy to swallow. Optional though, although the broth will have assumed the chicken flavor, if you wanted a little more chickeny, you can add a little bit of like better than broth, chicken flavor, or you can simply puree a couple pieces of the chicken and add it. But you don't want to do a bunch or it'll become grainy. So for every recipe, these are the options that I went through. And there's no recipes that you can't do these things to, because otherwise what good are they? You want to be able to have all of them. Does that make sense?
That makes sense. And why is a dumpling such a good dysphagia safe component? And then what would you think about someone substituting a noodle or rice?
Well, here's the thing. A dumpling is so good because when it falls apart and when you use the immersion blender, it thickens it. You don't need to add thickener. You don't need to add, in all of my recipes, there are no additives. So it's even better for the patients. We don't have MSG. We don't have aspartame. We don't have any additives, any thickening agents in here.
I was going to say, no artificial thickening.
No, you don't need that with this because this creates your own thickener for the soup. And so that makes it safe and tasty and healthy.
So what if someone wanted to go ahead and substitute noodles or rice? What do you think about that?
Well, the trouble is noodles won't mash very well. We tried that. And rice can break apart and fall into the throat. And if you try to use an immersion blender with rice, it becomes like wallpaper paste. So neither one of those are really good options for the puree. For the Mechanical Soft, again, they get slippery. They can fall down. They don't hold together as well. So I wouldn't substitute those.
Is there anything that someone would consider if they wanted to substitute with some potatoes?
In some of the other soups that we have potatoes because it does the same thing as the farina. In this, no, because it doesn't fit with this recipe. But there are some that you can do. Of course, mashed potatoes go with anything. Mashed sweet potatoes, mashed white potatoes, that works. But there are limited things you can thicken it with.
That's what I was thinking. Mashed potatoes here, it would seem intuitive, but it doesn't really fit.
It doesn't work well.
Yeah.
Because when you go to put it together, it doesn't thicken it as well. It separates it.
Yeah, so dumpling really takes care of that.
Right. And one thing that people can be assured of is that I've been cooking these recipes forever.
Yeah.
And trying them out, I did not include them if they didn't work.
Yes, because we both have had our own health conditions where we've had dysphagia ourselves, and that's why it's such a family-friendly focus.
Right.
Because we have had those issues, and I would not want to eat something that I can't swallow
Right.
when I'm feeling sick.
Right. No,
When I'm
it's
having those
or if
issues.
it's going to take up too much of your energy.
Yeah, or just so complicated,
Right.
you're not going to do it.
If the recipe is not easy, no one's going to do it.
Yeah,
I
and
mean,
all these ingredients you will either have or they're at your store.
well, one of the things is too, a caregiver's time is so precious.
Yeah.
Because they spend, so much of their life caring for their loved one, and there's so much to take care of. The last thing they want to do is have something that's overly complicated.
Yeah.
And the good thing about me being a dysphagia expert and having these thyroid problems my whole life, or since I had you kids, is that I understand what it feels like.
Yeah.
And that's what I sympathize with them to the point of helping them figure out what to do.
Yeah, because whether it's the individual or the caregiver, everyone's exhausted in that scenario.
Right.
They want it to be tangible and easy, something they could actually do with ingredients that they can trust that they will like. And I think that's what's so great about the seasonal feasts.
Yeah, I like too that they're so different. We have the holiday feast, which will be going up in November and going through January. Then we have the spring feast, we have the summer feast, the cookout, we have the fall feast, and then we have little ones in between of just special occasions. So we're trying to encompass almost everything so that there's always options, because I don't know about you, but I like me some options.
Especially things like candy, which is what we've been doing with Halloween, and we will do it again for Valentine's Day. You can have candy. And if you go to our social media, we show you some tips for Halloween. Some of those tips will apply to Valentine's Day too. Of you can make it dysphagia safe.
Well, and Christmas too.
Christmas.
The thing is, some of the things that you think would be safe aren't.
Right.
And I think we tried these marshmallow peeps and found that no, those aren't. You think they're soft and they'd be easy to swallow, but they're not necessarily.
They're sticky.
They are.
They're sticky and hard to pull apart.
That's right. So we always try to work with them to see which ones are no-brainer and which ones are more difficult. But we're not nutritionists. So if the patient is a diabetic or they're on a low salt diet or whatever, the thing I like about the recipes that I put in here is that you can add or subtract salt. Everything is, it's not canned, it's not frozen, it's just, regular food. So you can put as much spice or as little, and it can be low salt for you, and it can be low sugar. So that's what we have to make sure that people know. I do know that when you cook without MSG or aspartame and you cook
Low
foods,
acid.
they're low acid and your reflux does go down. And so that's really important as well.
Yes, and I love the fact that there's enough of them that you can make the choices perfect for your situation.
Into your taste.
So we're going to take another break, and then we're going to finish up by talking a little bit more of what you can expect and some of the education that we have, not only for clinicians, but patients and caregivers as well. The holidays are coming up, and we're getting into the new year. Don't forget to check out swallowsafe.com across all your favorite social media platforms. Look for our articles on LinkedIn and Substack, and check out our videos on Reels, TikToks, and more. Go to our YouTube page at Swallow Safe and learn more about tasty recipes and other tips perfect for you. So we've talked about the different consistencies and how we make them easy to understand and implement in the seasonal feasts. But could you take a minute and talk about what is a puree? What is mechanical soft? Why is this important, and why should I care?
Okay, so when you swallow, in order to swallow, there are 5 things that have to happen. You have your muscular system, all right? So your lips, your teeth, your tongue, your cheeks, everything has to work in coordination to chew the food and propel it backward. You have your neurological system that has to know that there's something there and it's sending signals. You have your respiratory system that has to close your vocal cords and protect your airway when it starts coming down. You have a gastrointestinal system where, swallowing is supposed to be unidirectional. It's supposed to go into your esophagus to your stomach and not come back up. But with reflux, LPR, silent reflux, it can come back up, fall back into your pharynx, and then slip between your vocal cords down into your lungs. That's called aspiration. Then we also have the cognitive, and people don't realize that in the central command of the brain, it's saying in a split second, oh, there's something in my mouth. What is it? Is it hot? Is it cold? Is it sweet? Is it sour? Do I have to chew a bunch? Do I only have to chew a little? And it goes so far as to say, how strong do I have to push that back there? Or how big do I have to open up the esophageal opening? And then the peristalsis to get it from the esophagus into the stomach. All of that is working in concert for one single swallow. So how you function is one thing, right? That's your structure. What is your structure? If you had a stroke, is it functioning well? Is it normal? Is it not normal? What's going on? Then you have the function of that structure. So let's say you have a weakened actual structures that don't function really well when you try to swallow, or they don't keep everything down. So you have structure, you have function, but then you have to take that and say, how does it work with each consistency of food? And the way that I put it to my patients is like this. Anybody, if you get a cold, what do? All right? You maybe feels good drinking a milkshake.
Right.
That's a honey thick liquid. Maybe it's hard to drink water. That's a thin consistency because you have all this garbage in your throat from your secretions and your coughing, etc. What do you do with your food? What tastes good to you? Pudding, soup, maybe mashed potatoes, maybe something soft. You're not going to crave steak and fried chicken because they're just too hard to swallow when you have a cold, right? That's what happens to these people when they get sick. Their structures maybe are altered. The function of them may be diminished, or the coordination is off. So what you have to look at, the third thing, is what consistency works for them. And you have to say what's going to work not only for breakfast, but for dinner and a snack. And so that's what we're doing. So when we're talking about regular, is anybody that can eat anything from a peanut butter sandwich to fried chicken to steak. Or mechanical soft, something that's in pieces, something like, Sloppy Joe that has ground beef and it has barbecue sauce and it kind of sticks together, right? Versus a steak.
Right.
And then puree, which would be like a souffle or that kind of consistency. But can you see why it matters? Because we're trying to put these three things together in a way that makes sense. So now if you add reflux into that and you say, I need low acid food, okay, that's great. But what's the function of the structures and what consistency do you need that to be?
And it's so important because we're talking about safety. So what is the pharynx? Why, if a food or liquid goes into the lungs, is that bad? And what, if you change regular to mechanical soft to puree, how does that actually improve safety?
Okay, so here's the way to look at that. Do you remember those old ketchup commercials where you had Heinz ketchup and it took forever for that to come out? All right, let's say that's a honey thick liquid. And then you had catsup, right? Some generic brand of catsup, and it flew out of the bottle. That's what happens in your throat. A thin liquid flies down.
Because the pharynx is the throat.
The pharynx goes from the back of your tongue to your vocal cords, all right? So,
and the vocal cords are the beginning of the airway.
Right. And so if you're having if your brain is having a delayed reaction that says something's coming, I need to close my vocal cords, you don't want something flying down. You want something that's going to give you time for your brain to sense it and say, oh, I better shut those cords.
Right.
Because what happens when it falls into the lungs, if that laryngeal nerve is not working the way that it should, the superior branch, and it falls into your airway, it can fall down, but if you don't feel it, you don't cough it out. And then it falls to the bottom of your lungs and it can fester and get infected. That's the very simple explanation.
And people that have swallowing issues that are chronic, they actually can get a lot of food and liquid in those lungs, and then they end up with pneumonia.
Absolutely. Once it becomes infected, that's where you get pneumonia.
And people don't realize that when you have something going on and then you add pneumonia, the situation becomes really unsafe, almost dangerous.
At any given time, statistically, in a nursing home setting, 40% of the patients have a pneumonia or a pneumonia festering, right? Of those 40%, half of them will pass away from it, because pneumonia, as you get older, as you get sicker, your ability to be able to fight it. And then you become oxygen deprived. It's like pouring glue in there. And then we have courses on COPD and CHF and respiratory dysphagia that talk about the oxygen exchange into the blood, things like that. But very simply, if your lungs are full of nonsense, whether it's food or liquid or secretions or whatever, you're not making that oxygen exchange into the blood.
Right.
And that's what fuels your body.
Where's the air going to go?
Exactly. And that's what fuels your body to survive. And so what we're looking at is very complicated, but what I've tried to do with Seasonal Feast is make it easy to understand so that people can actually do it. One of the things that's always driven me crazy is when professionals make everything, they only talk in medical terms or lingo. Well, nobody's going to understand that. Make it plain English, make it easy to do, and make it pertinent to the patient. The people that work for me for all these years, I would say it's not about you. It's not about what you want them to do. It's about what do they need to do to have the life that they want. Don't try to change their life, change how they live it. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. And I think that really speaks to why we were talking about getting tired. The patient can get tired, the caregiver, the family member, in trying to figure these things out all by themselves. We make it easy. We make it understandable in plain English, because it is exhausting, especially if that patient has pneumonia. And so I think it's important that you talk a little bit more about why is family so important to us and having this be family focused.
Well, we've done a lot of research over the years, and the patients that have family support simply get better. Not that they're going to recover, but they get better than those that don't have support. Why is that? It's because when you don't feel good, I don't care how healthy you are going in or what your issue is, you don't feel like managing everything.
No.
You have to have people around you that A, want to include you, B, want to treat you as normally as they can, and C, want to make you feel like you are a whole person. Because being sick is no fun.
No.
And it makes you feel less than. And what I've always tried to do is improve the comfort, care, and quality of life for every patient that crossed my path. Because that is what makes a difference, right? If the only thing you can do to swallow safely, just to use swallowing as an example, is, tuck your chin, turn your head, swallow 3 times, alternate this, that, the other, and the other. Yeah, you're not going to do that. No one's going to do that. So we just try to make it so that they can be around their family. We want them to be able to go do things with their family, go to their grandchildren's celebrations, participate, to the extent that they can.
And give that caregiver the strength as well as the control to be that support that the patient needs.
Right, and that's why on Swallow Safe, we have all kinds of things up there for the caregivers.
Oh, yeah.
And we're even developing more as we go along, because I think that they're the unsung heroes in this whole mechanism of rehabilitation, and we need to support them in every way that we can. I can always tell when a professional puts something out there. You could tell whether they've ever been sick or they had a family member that's been sick. Because if it's so unrealistic that it's just not going to happen, well then, what good is it? You've got to make this stuff realistic.
And in some future episodes, we'll talk a little bit more about our own experiences with dysphagia. But again, that's why it's so family focused, because our family has had to do this.
Everybody has
have had some medical conditions that
Yeah.
contribute to dysphagia.
Yeah.
And, it's different to talk about it as it is to go through it.
Well,
I know that's what it was for me. We talked forever, and then all of a sudden I had spinal cord issues. These things weren't working, and it clicked. Oh my gosh, Mom, I can't swallow.
Yeah.
And it just, your recipes, she literally used these recipes for me. Came to my house, cooked a bunch of food, put them all in the freezer, and for like the next 3 months, I felt so supported.
Yeah, and that's
It
the
was a
other. You
relief.
brought up something really good. All of these recipes can be frozen.
Oh, and they can be frozen.
And what we do is we'll freeze soup in cake tins.
Yep.
Cupcake tins. I mean, so that they're single or double serving. Or we'll put mashed potatoes with an ice cream scoop on a cookie sheet with parchment paper and freeze that and put them in a baggie. Like everything that we do, so that they can just pull them out, pull out a protein, pull out a side dish, pull out a dessert, put them in the microwave, and they have a dinner.
Yeah, because as you remember, on some of my good days, I could make something. But on some of those bad days, pulling out just that little bit of mashed potatoes and then just popping it in the microwave, I was so tired. I was so over it.
Yeah.
That's
who this is for.
That's exactly what it is. It gave me the relief that I needed that
Yeah.
day.
And the nutrition.
And the nutrition.
That's the important
On
thing,
top of
is
it.
they want to stay nutritionally sound. We want people to be hydrated, which is why we include liquids, things like that.
Well, speaking of nutrition, we have the holidays coming up. What are we going to expect, and when are we getting that cookbook?
Oh, well, when I have time to put it all together, I also want to add several more categories. So I'll be working on that through 2026. So let's hope that the cookbook comes out, and that's where all the recipes will go together. In the meantime, they can go to swallowsafe.com, and no matter what, there's always something up there.
And we have a lot of stuff on social media. We talked about the turkey dip a little
That's
bit.
right.
We do have some things to emphasize. This is the World Series this week. We have basketball, the college football playoffs, NFL playoffs. What are you going to do at the Super Bowl? What kind of things can you enjoy for New Year's? These are the little things that we also put up on social media. So don't forget to check us out there. We have this podcast up on Spotify, YouTube. We put some articles up on Substack and LinkedIn. So we really want you to be able to connect with us to build this community. And so I'm so excited that we were able to talk today. I really
my pleasure.
think it makes a difference. And if you guys haven't realized yet, we are very family focused. And we hope that this has been informational for you.
And helps their family.
And helps your family.
That's what our mission is.
And if you're a caregiver, just remember you are the unsung hero.
Absolutely.
We appreciate all you do.
This is Carol Winchester with feestraining.com. I am in the middle of one of our international training sessions. What I love about training is seeing the improvement that our trainees make in performing fees, not only day by day, but hour by hour. This is so rewarding. We want to thank you for joining our podcast. Check out swallowsafe.com for dysphagia tools, patient information, caregiver and aid resources, dysphagia tips, ideas, recipes, articles, video, and more. If you are a speech pathologist, check out feestraining.com, where we provide online training anywhere in the world and in-person training in sunny Sarasota, Florida. Swallow Safe Education is an ASHA-approved CEU provider.
Follow us on TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn, Blue Sky, X, and Substack. Like, share, and subscribe, and check out our future live events. See you next time.
Bye.